and social media and things like that.
Right.
We want to develop their life skills so that they will understand time management. They'll be able to work cooperatively, so that when they go out into industry, they go out to work, they can fit in easily. And so really, we want to use technology, and the Prime Minister has spoken about this. Also, too, in those schools where there is high levels of indiscipline, we have also taken measures there. We have added another layer to support the whole discipline structure. With the initiative of school-oriented police officers who will support the principals and the deans and the school safety officers and the MTS officers who are in the school to ensure that threats both inside and outside the institutions are neutralized, so that schools become conducive for learning, for teaching and learning. And that's what we're about to do. We want to give every child a chance to learn, because we believe that all children can learn. And one last thing, Mickie, we are looking at strengthening the student support services, where you have the social workers, the guidance counselors, and those, especially for those students who have learning challenges. And that's one of the areas that we are focusing on now, so that, as you indicated, we want to give every child an opportunity to be successful in school.
Now, let's look at what you're saying as far as security. Now, Tutor has made it quite clear, and I want to read what was said by the President, Martin Lumpkin. He said that he wants to make it extremely clear that Tutor will not support the use of armed officers in our nation's schools. The perception, as well as the risk associated with armed persons in our nation's schools, is not needed at this time. Now, like many others, parents and many of us who are looking on and seeing the crime situation and just how far the criminal elements are willing to take it, I mean, are we then to wait for the very same students that we are guiding and preparing for them to bring guns onto the school compound? Will it be okay then? Will it be all right, appropriate then for us to then make a move? I mean, because many would say, listen, this is a proactive move, making sure that these schools, these high-risk schools, are basically learning institutions and not turned into some sort of battlefield or an exchange of criminal activities. And what say you when the president of Tutor makes such a statement?
I think the evidence is there. In the last academic year, in the third term, a young student was killed outside the St. Francis Girls' School, in sight of all of the students in surrounding schools. And so the evidence is there that in certain schools, and that's why with information and research from the police and from the Ministry of Education, where we looked at suspension data and indiscipline involving violence with weapons and things like that, we have targeted 50 schools out of the 454 primary schools and the 125 secondary schools. 50 of the secondary schools for the school-oriented police officers to be on site, and the officers are not there to teach the students. You have all of the other personnel there available for that. They are an extra layer for security, for protection, to create a harmonious relationship, to be a deterrent for any kind of incident that will increase the indiscipline in schools. And for further 10 secondary schools and 10 primary schools, that's making 70 in all, there will be scheduled police patrols, checking in with the community police, checking in with the administrators, so that, like I said, in 6 months' time, we have to report back to the cabinet on this initiative. And so we are collecting data every day as we implement. And so, the perception is that it's police in all schools, and people need to listen to what we are saying. It's in 50 of our schools, and we have the data, and supported by the evidence for the police.
Yeah, but what stands out as well is that Mr. Lumpkin goes on to say that the policy of the Education Ministry and Homeland Security Ministry in relation to the officers remains unclear. Then what is the policy of tutor and that of the former minister of education? What was their policy?
Well, I am unclear what their policy. I'm very clear on what our policy is. We are ensuring that we have safe and secure schools, and so that the police will follow the law. And that's very clear. On Friday, we had a meeting. The acronym is Safe Schools, and we updated all of the principals and vice principals of the schools what they expect. And so the police presence there is a support to the administrators, because if you look at the job spec of a principal, the first responsibility and duty is to keep the students safe and secure, and then to apply the curriculum to the needs of the students so that they can go on to become successful graduates. And so it's really as a support for the whole institution.
And let me ask you this, Minister. Was this, of course, conveyed, was this conveyed to the other stakeholders? I mean, because again, when they seem to be weighing in on this issue, they're coming from a perception of being kept in the dark. Here it is where they're saying that it sends a worrying message and signals the perception that our students are criminals. But if you are attending a function and police officers are there, are you going to feel as though you're a criminal, or is the fact that they are present on duty to ensure the safety of the patrons and people who are there? So why is this any different?
Yes, so I think they need to re-examine the evidence. And we have updated them on all the policies and all of the initiatives. So both the National PTA and Tutor have been updated. Just like how I updated them on the vacation repair program, the PTA, they visited schools with myself and the MTS team. Mr. Lumpkin was otherwise occupied, so he could not have visited, but he had agreed to. So I want to say that, they need to open their eyes to the reality, but we have the mandate to ensure that schools are safe and secure. We're doing that. And, one of the things, Mickie, is this. When you get that sense of security, both parents and students, they will want to come to the school. They will want to engage in activities. And so the attendance, it's only when the students attend the school that they could be taught. Of course, we have online strategies, but it's when they interact in schools, that's where they learn their life skills. Sometimes, Mickie, you may have experiences when you went to school and you played on the playing field. That's where you learn conflict management. You argue about the penalty and things like that, and then you come to some agreement. You have to allow schools to be safe spaces of learning. And if somebody is against that, it means that they are against the future of the country, of the education of these young people. And I'm very concerned about that people need to get into the schools and understand the reality in some of our schools. Because we want, just like how we were looking at all schools being repaired and prepared for tomorrow, we want to make sure that every single child, too many children have been falling through the cracks. Mickie, at the CSEC level, the pass rate in maths is 43%. In a lot of the other subjects, they do reasonably well. But math is a really important subject to go on further to tertiary education, to jobs, to be able to think critically and things like that. So it means, therefore, that we have to give our students better and better opportunities to learn.
No, you're saying 43%. For those who are locked on, people are asking themselves, but these are not hidden figures. These are figures that the same tutor and the NPTA would be privy to. They would know that. And yet still one would think that they would be more than cooperative to come together and say, listen, let's try to deal with the situation at hand. If you're going into an environment that is toxic, that is not healthy, how then do you expect young people to learn and to grow and to develop?
I want to say this though. I have a very good relationship with the National PTA and the tutor, through the president, both presidents. I always talk with them daily and I keep them updated. So they have a fair idea of what's happening. But like I said, they have to collaborate more with us and sit and examine the evidence in terms of why these kind of strict measures have to be placed in. And like I said at the beginning, Mickie, that constantly, daily and weekly, we are reviewing how we implement these practices.
And how many would not be quite ready perhaps for tomorrow, but perhaps later on this week. And I know that you're still working up to the 11th hour. And again, I want to thank you for your commitment and dedication with your entire team, because this has been ongoing. And I know there are nights that you have been coming off of many of these school sites very tired and very late as well. So again, for those parents who are listening and preparing for tomorrow, just give us an idea again, how many schools, how many are ready, and some may take perhaps the end of the week or before that, before things settle in.
Well, Mickie, about half an hour ago, I came off the phone with the chairman of FTS, the CEO, and they have assured me that even those schools that have minor issues, that by later tonight, all those will be cleared up. So far, the assurance is that all schools will be open for tomorrow. Just to recap, it's 271 on the vocation repair program have been successfully completed. And in addition, to 179 the proper staff in place, facilities in place, but we expect the cooperation of the parents and alumni and the business community to support schools in their communities. Because one of the projects Mickie I'm looking forward to in this new academic year is an Adopt a School project, where bodies in the community will adopt schools and ensure that, you know, the issues we're facing, as you indicated, you know, schools deteriorating in terms of infrastructure, that we could actually be proactive and make sure that we keep our schools in excellent condition, so we could have the best learning opportunities for our students. So I welcome all of them to school tomorrow, and I wish them the best success, and we will continue to monitor and evaluate all of our programs to ensure that we provide the best learning experiences for our students.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. It's been a pleasure always to have you on. And again, keep up the good work. And, you know, as it stands now, all schools will be ready to function. They will be open tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, there you go, folks. Minister of Education, the Honorable Dr. Michael Dowlett, of course, making it quite clear as it stands right now. At this time, all schools are scheduled to open tomorrow. So that's some very good news. And I'm sure parents you are definitely just as excited as the students ready to start off the term and ready to get going. So, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue right here on The Observer.
Your heart does so much for your body, your life, your loved ones. But modern stress, diet, and lifestyle can tip the balance, especially with every passing day. Heart XL delivers high-potency omega-7 palmitoleic acid from sustainable pollock oil to elevate HDL and support a healthy metabolism.
Inflammation and low HDL put your heart at risk. Heart XL's omega-7 helps reduce C-reactive protein and support healthy HDL, keeping your heart strong.
Heart XL, nourish your heart, sustain your life.
When you say TNT's construction boss, then there's only one company, Lacroix Construction Services Limited. Specializing in general construction. Construction boss.
Where does disease start? It often begins silently. No pain, no symptoms, just inflammation quietly damaging your body. Our choices, food, stress, pollution, all feed inflammation. Chronic inflammation is the root cause of many modern diseases.
You can't go back in time, but you can start addressing inflammation before it becomes disease.
Omega XL is a natural inflammation fighter clinically researched with over 30 fatty acids and no fishy aftertaste.
Quality and affordable hardware supplies. No one beats Midland Hardware. Located number 97 Eastern Main Road, Aruca. Midland stocks the #1 brands in hand tools, garden tools, water tanks, power washers, generators, water pumps, kitchen and bathroom faucets, along with face basins and toilet sets, blocks, lumber, steel, sand, gravel and topsoil, all kinds of metal curtain rods, everything for home and business projects, payments via links, credit cards, online payments or cash on delivery. WhatsApp 327-7761 or call 646-2144. Open every day from 8 a.m. From foundation to finish, it's all at Midland.
Is high blood sugar the root cause of diabetes? Most people think high blood sugar is the problem. The truth, it's inflammation. Insulin resistance is the root cause of diabetes. Reducing that inflammation is key. Omega XL is a natural option. Not fish oil, but a patented green-lipped muscle extractor with over 30 fatty acids, including EPA and DHA. Clinically studied, backed by over 30 years of research. Stay tuned.
Omega XL. Power your health.
Husqvarna, a global leader in outdoor power equipment, known for its high performance, durable and innovative products, tested and proven by generations of professionals. Full after sales and service support whenever you need it. Contact Provar Distributors Limited, 223-9438 to find a dealer near you.
If you live with diabetes, your pancreas works overtime every single day. Between our rich foods and busy lives, chronic inflammation can sneak in, stressing the pancreas and raising the risk of complications. Over time, inflammation can damage these cells, making blood sugar harder to control.
Protecting your pancreas from inflammation is a smart way to support healthy blood sugar management.
Backed by science, Omega XL is a natural anti-inflammatory with over 30 free fatty acids, proven to help reduce inflammation at its source. Learn more online or ask your local pharmacist.
Oh gosh, this place hot and the AC in this car not working.
Check Ryan Air. Ryanair is ranked among the best in TNT for auto air conditioning service. They specialize in repairing and servicing all makes and models of vehicles and heavy equipment. They also stock a wide range of parts. Give them a call at 640-5828 or visit them at number 41 King Farm Road, Tacarigua, or email ryanairac@gmail.com. For prompt and efficient service, look no further than Ryanair.
Dust from the Saharan desert, over 6,000 kilometers away, travels across the Atlantic to our little island, filling the air we breathe with tiny dust particles that can trigger an inflammatory response when inhaled into the lungs.
Saharan dust travels far and triggers inflammation. Omega XL helps reduce it at the source. Support your body from within.
And we are back. Thank you so much, Master Control. Before we get started again, let me say Alan Hercules, wrong platform, my friend, wrong platform. The Observer, it doesn't happen here, okay? All right, folks, we are back. And joining us is a man who's no stranger to the program. I haven't spoken to him for a while, but he has been doing a lot of great work. Let me say a blessed Sunday afternoon to Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs, the Honorable Philip.
Mickie. And on walking into that hall and seeing all the excitement and joy on the faces of the students reminded me why I remain committed to serving our youth. And I also shared a message with them while I was there. I told them whether you want to be a doctor, an artist, a teacher, an athlete, or even the Prime Minister one day, the journey begins in the classroom. These backpacks and supplies aren't just items. They are a toolkit for success. I encourage them to stay curious, ask questions, help their classmates, and never be afraid to try, even if they stumble. Just like in sports, the most important thing is to show up, give your best, and keep practicing.
Yes, very inspirational.
Was given in Wallerfield, where I did another back to school drive in Wallerfield, in the farming area, where 100 students received their backpacks and back to school item. And then the following week I did another 100 distribution again in Jacob Hill, right, for the students in Jacob Hill. So in all we did approximately about 550 students benefited.
Quite a lot. You also did, if I'm not mistaken, the Todd's Road Youth Cricketers at the Sport Ministry. You have been able to should I say, accommodate a lot of people who have been coming through, meeting with you, of course, and you'll be able to highlight that as well. Since getting into office and having to deal with these young people, what stands out the most?
What stands out the most is the lack of facilities to develop our young athletes, right? And the Java cricket, we did that Java cricket to delve down into the communities, to touch the grassroots people, because what I noticed in coming in as the new sport minister is that the rural areas, the people in the rural areas, they are not fortunate as the people living in the Westmoreland areas and whatnot. So we want to delve down into those grassroots areas and bring back sport to these people who cannot afford coaching for their children, because most of the good athletes, come from these rural areas where these kids have natural talent. So as Minister of Sport, I will be delving down into the grassroots. The Java was a grassroots cricket. We were able to touch almost 2,500 kids, because we started planning this thing within the first 3 weeks I got into the Ministry of Sport. we realized we were in July, August vacation were close approaching, and we actually decided to run this Java cricket. We couldn't do it in all constituencies, but we were able to touch about 2,500 kids between Trinidad and also in Tobago. We did the Java cricket in 6 different locations in Tobago.
Yeah, and I know going through the communities and what have you, the rural areas, and I think that's a very strong point, because we're hearing it from different areas where people are saying, listen, you know, there was a time when we had so much activities going on, we had these grounds, now these grounds
what the athletes are going through. You speak directly to the athletes. If you want to understand how best you can assist and where the shortcomings are, you need to speak with the athletes. So I've been speaking to a lot of the athletes. I've been meeting with NGBs also to find out how can we better sport and to build athletes in Trinidad and Tobago. And what I'm hearing is that athletes has no place for strength training, no gym. The nutrition is an issue. The psychological part of the athlete development is an issue. So I'll be working on that. And if you would realize that sometime last month in August, we actually opened a strength training gym. Now this strength training gym is a special strength training gym for elite athletes. And what I'm about rolling out strength training gyms in every single stadium we have in this country, in Trinidad and Tobago, so that athletes from east, west, north, south, central, they can just go down to these gyms and access the gyms for free and do their strength training. And I'll be sitting with Sport TT to see if we can bring in some dietitians and some sports psychologists into the ministry to work with these athletes also too. Notwithstanding that, to develop the athletes, they need proper facilities. And I'm about starting to develop facilities. Once the funding is available, we will speak to the athletes and find out which facilities and which location. So we will spend the money in the correct areas so that the athletes will benefit. We are also, if you look at at our website in the ministry, you would have seen that we would have been giving the elite athlete grant funding also too, right, to help them with their training outside of Trinidad. And once we keep on course, we will start to develop more and more athletes in all the different sporting disciplines in Trinidad and Tobago.
You know, you said something interesting at one of the openings, I believe, of the gyms, and you said that it was more than just opening doors to a facility. It is about opening doors to opportunity. Have we lost that? I mean, have we lost that focus where the individuals who may have held office before believed that everything had to be concentrated and focused on them, and lost sight of the fact that it is the athletes who go out there, who give it their all to represent this country? And are you putting that back on track? I mean, no pun intended, but are you putting that back in place?
As I said, if we want to develop athletes, we need to hear from the athlete. And this is why I've been spending so much time meeting with athletes to hear what are the cries of the athlete, to know how to better serve them. So most definitely, the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs is back on track when it comes to the development of athletes with this approach that I'm taking.
And looking at Sport TT, I know there are many things that will be, of course, marriage between yourself and your ministry as well as Sport TT. Can you give us an idea moving forward? What are some of these events or programs that are going to be, outlined?
One of the things that I'm speaking to both Sport TT and the ministry, because we both work hand in hand. We want to start to develop proper policies and proper programs from the primary school level in all sporting disciplines to develop athletes, right? So we move the athlete from the primary school level, we identify the ones that are really excelling. We take them, we have a different program for the secondary schools in all different disciplines. We identify the ones that are excelling, and we come up with different programs and strategies as to how to develop them going forward. So with disciplines like cricket, football, and those kind of sport, you find you will have better athletes coming out, and then we take them from there after school. After when they reach the Form 5, Form 6, when they graduate from school.
And how important do you believe, I mean, because many people have been saying that, when you look at our past record at the Olympics and what have you, we just didn't seem to stand out. How important do you believe that these programs are going to play a role in getting us back there on that global track?
Most definitely. Everything once it's driven by proper policy and proper program and proper coaching, because what we are going to do, we are going to train our coaches and put them into the school system, right? When we develop the program, so we will have proper coaches too, from the primary school level flowing all the way to secondary school.
Yeah. One of the things I asked you when, of course, as a candidate, I remember when I interviewed you, and I said, who is Philip Watts? One of the things that stood out is that you said that Philip Watts is a man who cannot see things going wrong and just stand by, idly by, and say and do nothing. You're a man who's always committed to the community and committed to the people. And being in office, I mean, it's been a short time, but have you been able to actually understand that more and what it really represents?
Yes, what I've been doing for the past couple of months now, this particular Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs, one part of the ministry is actually sport, and the next side of the ministry is youth development. And right. I've been working tirelessly to ensure that on the youth side of the ministry also, that we roll out programs. So what I would have done since sometime in June, July, I met with the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, and as you would know, the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, they account for most of the revenue, not most of, but about 17% of the revenue into this country on a yearly basis, and there's lots and lots of room for this particular industry to expand. So what I did, I met with the TTMA and I asked them, where you all falling short, what you all need. They told me that they need 1,500 employees. They are falling short of 1,500 employees. So we took the initiative to merge. We met with UTT, we met with MIC, the Ministry of Tertiary Education, and we are now developing a program based on the request of the TTMA. They told me that they wanted people trained in robotics, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and they are actually falling 1,500 short on labor within that particular sector. What I see there is expansion and growth for the TTMA if we are able to actually train this volume of youths. And we are not training people who is just going out there, who is giving a participation certificate and they're going out there without doing anything. We are training them specifically for this particular industry, so we know that they are flowing into gainful employment, right? And with that level of training, that should help the TTMA to expand, and by extension, it means that once TTMA expand, it means more revenue for Trinidad and Tobago, because we need to start looking outside of oil and gas. And the next thing we are doing also in the ministry, we are about to set up a committee to look seriously, once and for all, at sport tourism, developing and pushing sport tourism and making that a big industry, because as you know, sport today in the world is just not sport. Sport is a billion-dollar industry, and Trinidad and Tobago need to tap into that. So I am seriously looking into that and put a committee together to start looking at how we could take a bite of that cherry that is just sitting and waiting there for us.
No, I mean that is a lot, and I must commend you for that indeed. I mean, we've seen where in other parts of the region there are international sporting bodies that are coming and looking to capitalize on our geographical locations. And I know for a fact that you have sent out to those who may want to come on board with whatever it is they have that is going to be beneficial to our athletes, and also to help put us on the map where, of course, sport tourism is concerned. And I guess this is a big played out, should I say, plan or project that yourself and your support staff is going to be involved in, which is wonderful. Which is wonderful. As far as our footballers, I know you've given them 100% support. What can we expect coming out of all of this as far as backing for them?
Well, we are going all out. I don't know if you realize we renovated the changing rooms for our footballers. Sometime in May, I went to a game and I asked the coach, what can we do to assist you all? And he told me, you know, the changing room is in a total state. And at Friday's game, we actually had a contractor completed the changing rooms, and the guys were really, really happy. Going forward, whatever financial assistance we can assist the team with, I'm fully backing the team. The TTFA president, Mr. Edwards, he told me back in May also to mention the grandparent law. And while other sports ministers might have been twiddling their thumbs with it since sometime 2020, this particular sport minister, after 4 months, brought the grandparent law to the cabinet to be laid in parliament so that we could help our teams to perform better on the world stage.
Yeah, just to share with the general public that what the minister is speaking about is that law that would allow national teams to cast a wider net for talent. And that, of course, they agreed to the bill to be introduced in Parliament at its earliest opportunity, and that is some very good news. The change would allow people born overseas to acquire TNT citizenship if a grandparent was a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago at the date of their birth. So that itself gives us access to a lot more talent and looking beyond. So I want to say hats off to you for that as well. Any closing statements? Go right ahead.
Well, what I would say to Trinidad and Tobago, this is 4 months inside. And we have done so much, and this is just so from time to time she will call me and say, you know, put your best foot forward, ensure that we move sport and youth affairs, and that I'm doing.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work. We'll be checking in with you periodically. And again, to you and your entire support staff, I know you have quite a team that is committed and dedicated just like yourself. So again, keep up the good work. And it's always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Folks, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, more right here on The Observer. We're going to link with veteran journalist Ken Alley as he continues to highlight what was taking place, where the money gone. That's why the question is being asked almost every week. Where the money, where the money, where the money? Well, it landed in somewhere, but it didn't land in our pockets. When we come back.
Your heart does so much for your body, your life, your loved ones. But modern stress, diet, and lifestyle can tip the balance, especially with every passing day. Heart XL delivers high-potency omega-7 palmitoleic acid from sustainable pollock oil to elevate HDL and support a healthy metabolism.
Inflammation and low HDL put your heart at risk. Heart XL's omega-7 helps reduce C-reactive protein and support healthy HDL, keeping your heart strong.
Heart XL, nourish your heart, sustain your life.
When you say TNT's construction boss, then there's only one.
With over 30 fatty acids and no fishy aftertaste. Available Caribbean-wide at pharmacies and health food stores. Call 1-868-225-0410 for more information.
For all top quality and affordable hardware supplies, no one beats Midland Hardware, located number 97 Eastern Main Road, Aruka. Midland stocks the #1 brands in hand tools, garden tools, water tanks, power washers, generators, water pumps, kitchen and bathroom faucets, along with face basins and toilet sets, blocks, lumber, steel, sand, gravel, and topsoil. Also check out Midland for steel windows and assorted designs of metal curtain rods. Everything for home and business projects. Payments via links, credit cards, online payments, or cash on delivery. WhatsApp 327-7761 or call 646-2144. Open every day from 8 a.m. From
Your pancreas works overtime every single day. Between our rich foods and busy lives, chronic inflammation can sneak in, stressing the pancreas and raising the risk of complications. Over time, inflammation can damage these cells, making blood sugar harder to control.
Protecting your pancreas from inflammation is a smart way to support healthy blood sugar management.
Backed by science, Omega XL is a natural anti-inflammatory with over 30 free fatty acids, proven to help reduce inflammation at its source. Learn more online or ask your local pharmacist.
Oh gosh, this place hot. And the AC in this car not working.
check Ryan Air. Ryan Air is ranked among the best in TNT for auto air conditioning service. They specialize in repairing and servicing all makes and models of vehicles and heavy equipment. They also stock a
filling the air we breathe with.
It went in a direction that is not going to benefit us as citizens, but lining the pockets apparently of others. Let me say a pleasant and blessed Sunday afternoon to him. Welcome, Mr. Ali.
Good evening to you, Mikey, and your many listeners and viewers. Thank you for having me on your very, very popular program.
Thank you so much for being here. Big shots who owe up to $5 million for Porsche HGC apartment. As a matter of fact, the story was picked up by one of the mainstream news outlets. It was today, big headlines and so much going on. A lot of these things took place. I think the timing is something we have to question, Mr. Ali. This took place, was it on the eve of the general elections?
No, what happened is that these were contracts, in fact, quite a lot of contracts. I have a document here with quite a number of contracts. Issued on various dates, sample date would be 2 years ago and so on. And so there were that is an issue because several of these comes up to 57 million, 57.5 million, right? And these contracts were extended after the general election without public tendering. So they were extended for a period of a year on a month-to-month basis without public tendering. So here's what. These contracts were issued at HDC, as I said, other agencies too. I will talk about NITCO in a bit. And they are linked. There's one page I have on this document in which virtually every contract is directly linked to a then Minister of Government. So after that took place, after the general election, April 25th, the electorate spoke in a certain way. One would have expected that this matter would have been shelved or handled in a different way. Would reference the newly elected government, but they continued business as usual. It extended the contracts on a month-to-month basis. Now, I guess we're speaking here about HDC, but it pertains to several other agencies. I saw the Guardian pick up the story today, and I must commend them. And for example, one of the page here, and I'm going to call names because it's now in the public place. Yes. We have seen the registered documents pertaining to the company. So we could say Pickle Services Limited is directly linked to Foster Cummings, who, as you know, was the Member of Parliament for Lahore, Talparo, former General Secretary of the PNM, and so on. And that family members were listed as owners and directors and so on. So it raises several questions about where the ethics of this thing, whether there was the adherence to the procurement law, and the whole propriety of extending a contract when a new government has just been elected. So this is that issue. Like I said, HDC, we're dealing with HDC. And there's several more I have to say now. The opposition leader has not spoken. And Mickie, I don't want to say too much on that matter yet, but I will have something to say soon in my writings. And I write on, let me say to your listeners and viewers, I write in Sunshine Today newspaper and on my Facebook page, and then I talk in various places. But I'm going to write soon about contracts that Ms. Penelope Beckles Robinson may want to have to explain about. So and this pertains to another agency called NIDCO, National Infrastructure Development Corporation. So to embody this whole story, it is that several contracts worth millions of dollars seem to be close to senior members of the then Rowley administration. Right? We have gotten the relevant documents to indicate.
But the thing about it, Mr. Ali, the issue of there was no tendering process for this.
For the extension, at least.
For the extension, all right. So these were for the extension. So we don't know if it was sole select that started off this.
We don't know at this stage, but we will find out in due course. But here you have, if you're looking at $57 million in contracts, and I'm telling you a whole page here of several contracts directly linked to one minister of government. You have to ask the question, and I'm only asking you whether preferential treatment was given, whether there was open tendering and was fair and transparent, and there was accountability and probity. And so those questions are legitimate questions in the face of the fact that several contracts are given to certain people and certain companies linked to the government. Now, we also have this case, and I could call names again, Andrew Gabriel, a company, Trinidad Tobago Landscaping, owned by his wife, and so on. Questions again. And it prompted the questions, and we're only asking questions, whether in fact there was accountability, because if these are people who are known to be close to the P&M getting these contracts, taxpayers want to know that it's been done in a fair, open, transparent process, and that every bidder got a fair chance, and so on. So those are the questions relevant to this. And remember, there have been, with respect to other companies also, there have been various questions asked. So HGC is just one of several companies in which there are questions about the issuance of contracts.
Yeah, but one has to ask the question, I mean, just looking at all the information that's coming out, there's even with the Integrity Commission, he has, of course, Mr. Cummings, has declared his assets. His properties increased over the years, beginning in 2018 to 2019, when he declared 9 properties. In 2020, he declared 2 more properties, and 12 properties in 2021, which, of course, they laid out in Fabian Street in Gasparillo, Gahoo Trace in Chase Village, Chaguanas, Lighthouse Avenue, Signal Hill, Tobago, Exchange Estate, Couva, Indian Trail, Couva, Lisa's Gardens Housing Project in Couva, Sherwood Park in Canopy, Tobago, and land and building in Southern Main Road in Couva, and Anissa Street, Point Lisa's, and it goes on to quite a bit of properties. At some point in time, didn't this raise a red flag for the powers to be to say, listen, something's wrong here?
Well, it ought to raise questions, and I want to say this guardedly, I don't know the gentleman's source of funds, I don't know any such thing, but he said probably that it ought to raise red flags. He is a public official, and this is a government that spoke about integrity in public affairs and so on. If you read a manifesto, and if you listen to, as we all did for 10 years, the pronouncements of Dr. Rowley about leading scrupulously clean government and so on, we're not pointing fingers at anyone, but there are a lot of questions to be asked, and you've listed some, and I commend the Guardian for the work it's done in investigating and for this investigation. But it is just one, Mikey, of a number of issues about the use of public funds that is coming into the public's glare, and for which there are a lot of concerns. I have more to talk about. I'm going to talk about very soon a contract at HTC that started for $3 million and ended up at $35 million.
My God.
$3 million and ended up at 35 and
over a period of what time we're talking about?
I could get that from the sheet, but it is the scope of works was expanded a bit, but at one point the scope of works were not expanded, and yet the final pricing went up. So as I speak to you, I have the document here, and I will also produce the document so that people can see it. And we have documents from the relevant contractor and so on. Now, the experts are saying they could justify an increase of up to 19 million because the scope of works indicate a revised scope of works, but it moved from 3.5 million to $34,709,735, around $9,735.12, VAT exclusive. And so this here is one of the matters in which there must be questions. It started on 2018, Mikey, 17th of October 2018, right, for the upgrade of the existing Bonnet West wastewater treatment plant, right? That is the project. It started at $3,598,125 VAT exclusive, and there were some variations because the scope of work changed a bit, but it moved from 3.5 to $34.7 million. So again, and these are, Mikey, almost samples. I mean, you've been doing a lot of media too, and you'll be hearing things about the use of public funds and so on. All of that while people outside of the political beltway, poor people are suffering. There's a lot of poverty, a lot of hardship in the country and so on. And you find that some contracts have a direct beneficial link or to people close to the governance in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, very interestingly, I saw in The Guardian today, Foster Cummings declining to comment.
Yes.
If I got that right.
Yeah, that's what it said in the story, yes.
Right. No, I would think, Mikey, he has a responsibility too. And if he does not, remember, he's a senator appointed by Ms. Beckles-Robinson. I can't understand, I certainly can't understand under what situation she would want to retain him in the Senate. Because you're in the opposition, you're entitled to only 6 opposition senators, and you have Foster Cummings, about whom there are a number of questions. Let's put it this way: a lot of people are asking questions, and like you said, the mainstream media picked it up today, The Guardian asking questions and so on too. And I don't know if silence is an option, and I don't know if the lack of any action by Ms. Beckles-Robinson is really an option. I think he must be held to account and he must be made to explain. And Ms. Beckles must exercise her options with respect to her senators.
Yeah, well, you're right. And, apparently he did not answer the question, which would have been, did he felt that there was a conflict of interest, this according to the story in the newspaper, whether he felt there was a conflict of interest in companies linked to him benefiting from millions in taxpayers' dollars while he was a sitting government minister. Neither did he answer whether, as General Secretary of the PNM, he would be okay if the United National Congress government did the same. Instead, he told the media investigation desk that all is above board.
Well, I don't want to suggest what he may mean by that. He may mean, the company bid, and so were his companies given an inside track? Now, this is only a question. I'm not drawing any conclusions. But these are legitimate questions that the man in the street would ask. You have a senior government minister who is General Secretary of the ruling party. He's a prominent, he's a dominant person. He's a powerful person in the country, in the government. And companies directly linked to him are getting contracts. Nobody's saying it's preferential, but questions must be asked. These are taxpayers' funds. And I don't think a blanket statement that all is above board is good enough. And the Guardian is correct to ask whether it would be satisfactory if the reverse were true. And and how would you respond if that was the state of affairs with the UNC?
Yeah, I mean, at some point in time, there has to be answers to these questions. And again, that's why I want to really and truly commend you for the work that you're doing, because, you have people who are saying, listen, what's really going on? We're hearing nothing about it. There's a narrative of tighten your belt. That was laid out for quite a period of time. Tighten your belt, better days are coming. We're going to see some light at the end of the tunnel. But at the same time, when we hear about these monies, and it's not small, we're hearing millions upon millions that were gathered by this one, and this one received it. As a matter of fact, we have to ask the question, because there were two prime ministers before the election. And is it that one prime minister, we're just asking, one prime minister told Mr. Cummings, listen, you've eaten enough. I mean, you've overstuffed yourself. And we're just asking whether or not this is true, because that's the information. As journalists, we get this information. But
Yes.
but there has to be something. Something.
Yes, and whether that minister, just as you're saying, just asking, was involved in some activities in the, and was at the center of controversy during the PNM leadership issue, and had to be pulled aside and spoken to and so on. As you're saying, I'm just asking because we as media people, we get information, we get documents, we have documents that they cannot deny, and so on. So all of these are bothersome issues. The PNM came in, Dr. Rowley. I remember Fitzgerald Hines saying Dr. Rowley is the cleanest person in public life, and so on and so forth. Was Dr. Rowley not aware of the state of affairs? Or did all of this take place under his nose as Prime Minister and he did not know? If he knew, why didn't he take action? And does he consider it proper? Maybe he could give us a narrative that indicates it's proper. All right, fine, we leave it there. If he does indicate, and he could justify it. But he has not done so. And he has not, even though he is retired now, he has come out from time to time. And under his watch, these matters took place. He may want to come forward and provide an explanation to the people. And that may be satisfactory. Who knows? It may be satisfactory. But I think it is incumbent upon him, and maybe Stuart Young also, who served briefly as Prime Minister, and also now to Ms. Penny Beckles Robinson, who is the opposition leader and leader of the PNM, to provide some explanation to the people.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I mean, we're also hearing that perhaps the entire statement is based on the fact that the management and the board of these state entities where these monies may have been received due to work or whatever contract should be the ones that the onus should be placed on. How fair is that?
Yes. Yeah, indeed, their board of directors. Remember, a judge said only recently that directors must be held accountable, and they are not just to push government policy, but they must be held accountable for each decision they make. But now that draws us back. If we speak about that, we remember when the first administration of Ms. Prasad Bisesa had brought charges against Malcolm Jones and so on for the WGTL scandal, in which taxpayers lost $3 billion. And when Dr. Rowley came in, mysteriously they dropped charges against him. He was the executive chair of Petrotran and the entire board of directors. So while you're saying we must hold chairman and directors accountable, here you have an administration in which it is fair to say that Malcolm Jones was the industrial and energy person, very close to, in fact, that government gave him the country's highest award and so on. Here one government said that he must answer for the loss and waste of $3 billion, and another government just simply pulled back the litigation against him. So the question is, Mickie, if there is corruption, who is held liable? Anybody at all, or are people protected from because of political purposes? But the Malcolm Jones matter stands out with us because of what was absolutely glaring and how the matter turned out.
No, you're right. You're right. And also on this issue of, you also wrote about the political hypocrisy over the U.S.-Venezuela conflict, where many are weighing in now and saying that, and of course always bandying about these words of independence and sovereignty and all of that, when in fact that, based on what you've written, that there was a signing that an extensive deal of a military-to-military agreement that was signed by the former administration.
No, I'm glad you bring that up because the status of forces agreement, it is an old agreement, but in December last year, the U.S. authorities, Candice Bond here in Trinidad, but the then Secretary of State was Anthony Blinken, they brought to Trinidad and they asked that the agreement, the status of forces agreement, be negotiated and strengthened. Dr. Rowley allowed in this new SOFA agreement the U.S. to put boots on the ground here in case there's a conflict nearby, to discipline their soldiers through their law, to bring in shortwave radio and all the other tools of war. All of those things. And when the media asked him at a post-Gab press conference to give details, what would it take? He said, I'm not going to provide a tutorial. In other words, what he really did is sign an agreement in secret, where the sovereignty of the country is at stake. And now we have the hypocrisy of people in the PNM talking about Mr. Sadbi's support for the Americans and so on. What is their position with respect to the SOFA matter? Why aren't we hearing? Why didn't Dr. Rowley give us details then? Why is Ms. Beckles-Robinson silent? What did Trinidad and Tobago offer in the SOFA agreement to the Americans? And why Dr. Rowley's government signed on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And the media asked him, tell us what's in that agreement. And he said, I will not provide a tutorial. Here's the elected Prime Minister of the country, whose job is to speak on our behalf and to account to us, refusing to account in this matter. And still they have not responded. That's why I say, Mikey, this is absolutely hypocritical.
No, I agree with you, and history has a way of repeating itself, Mr. Ali, because if you remember at one time we had the shipwrighter agreement. At that time, the Secretary of State was Warren Christopher. In power at that time was the late Basdeo Pandey, and you had these same words being bandied about independence and sovereignty and what we have with the shipwrighter agreement. But if you move forward a bit, where a sitting Prime Minister was summoned to a meeting, a private meeting, it wasn't something by the Chamber of Commerce or anything like that, a private meeting in West Trinidad, and within 48 hours an election was called. Where was our independence and sovereignty then?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, and there are so many things that people have not been told about. I'll tell you one more, and this article I think is coming out early in the Sunshine, and I will also place it on Facebook. The Rowley government had negotiated, had announced in its 2015 general election manifesto, it was going to set up a border patrol agency, border protection agency, because they said the Coast Guard is not effective, customs and excise, and scanners and working, people corrupt, they're taking bribes, and so on and so on and so forth. It's in the manifesto, page 20, closely manifesto. And so they set up a committee who recommended that, and that was the last we heard of it. Why Trinidad and Tobago, Mikey, and your listeners, there are 123 open borders all over the place, whether it's Erin or Palo Seco, Caracas, Seagrass, and all over the place, all coves all over the place, up in Toco, about 123. And this would have provided surveillance and reconnaissance and modern equipment and so on, modern technology and so on. And the PNM government scrapped the attempt to set up that agency, which would have dealt conclusively, very effectively with drug trafficking. In 2020, CARICOM set up a committee to investigate Venezuelan gangsters coming through the Caribbean. And they found that then, 5 years ago, Tren de Aragua was coming from Venezuela to Trinidad and Tobago, transshipping cocaine, which was getting to the U.S. The Rowley administration did nothing about it, and that's a fact. So that they came to Trinidad, and when Trump was elected, whether we like him or not, he imposed ICE. ICE is the agency, right, in immigration and customs. And so on, arrested them, they deported them, and so on. Those are the similar people, their colleagues, and that group was formed in a jail in Venezuela. They're the people who they bombed out in the high seas a few days ago. So no action was taken with respect to Tren de Aragua. Them fellas come and they're linking up with local gangsters, committing crime, bringing in contraband goods, drugs, and all kinds of things, woman trafficking and all of those things. And again, our borders remain wide open. Mikey, these are just so many governance issues I mean, we started speaking about one thing and we veered off into another. And there are so many issues that are relevant to governance, the security of the people, and the use of public funds.
Yeah, because at the end of it all, we need to pinpoint the fact where hypocrisy is being used to sell some other agenda. And the fact of the matter is that the Prime Minister stands and she says, listen, we are happy for whatever assistance to deal with narco trafficking. I mean, who would stand against something like that? Who would have an issue with a country that is known to be a transshipment area for narcotics to say, listen, we're just going to conduct things as business as usual? No, it cannot be.
And I think Minister Sturge is correct when he said in the media a few days ago that if we deal with this drug trafficking issue, we could condone crime in Trinidad and Tobago.
Of course.
A lot of the crime is connected to drug trafficking. One, it is about turf wars and so on, but it's also about the illegal importation of arms and ammunition, high-powered arms and ammunition, and it is about time that this matter be dealt with. It's only strengthening more and more. America and Europe are the largest consumers of cocaine and so on. The fentanyl comes from Mexico and so on, but cocaine, and they said 13% of the world's volume of cocaine comes from Venezuela. Even if 1% of the world's use of cocaine comes through Trinidad, that's a lot for a tiny little island, and the impact it could have in destabilizing our society. And nothing has been done over all of these years.
Yeah, and one would think now that we're finally seeing something that could take place, one would be more than accommodating to say, well, yeah, we're heading in the right direction. How many families, how many individuals' lives have been destroyed by this toxic poison that has been on the streets, that has been, of course, being, allowed to leave our area and shipped to other parts of the world, whether it be Europe or to North America? And how many lives have been affected by it?
Indeed, and it speaks to the hypocrisy and the inefficiency. You remember Dr. Rowley hosting a crime summit here with his colleagues.
That's right.
Making us at a talk, and nothing came out of it. Those are islands hopeless, and they don't have a security, and their borders are as porous as Trinidad and Tobago. They look to Trinidad and Tobago for leadership, and we are offering absolutely no leadership. And the intelligence information, the U.S. has been giving us a lot of intelligence information through the drug enforcement agencies and several others. And they tell us on all these busts in the ICs, Mikey, every one of them, including one in June where the raid was worth 25 million US, all of them is done through the leadership of the US, because they realize Trinidad and Tobago, nothing has been happening. There's not been leadership at any level, including the law enforcement leadership. Now there's effective leadership in law enforcement. The police service has a very effective police commissioner and so on. But so the US came in and got involved and were providing that leadership to make the arrests and the ICs, because they know it's in their interest. All of this, and absolutely nothing was done here by the leaders in national office.
Yeah. Any closing comments? Go right ahead.
Well, yes, there are, over the next few days, I have more to say on several leadership matters, on several contract matters in state agencies. I hinted at this matter with respect to NITCO, and Ms. Beckles-Robinson may want to explain when that comes out about certain contracts and so on. Mikey, a lot is happening in terms of the revelations. One of the things about this government is that it is busily working and trying to make a difference. And there are a lot of findings about irregularities in the past that are not coming to the front. And when they do, people are stunned about the misappropriation of funds, the wastage, and the general malgovernance over the last decade.
Yeah, again, and this is why you continue to bring it to the forefront, and we must commend you for that. Great job.
Thank you, Mikey.
Always a pleasure to have you on. We'll be checking in with you periodically, and let's get that information out.
Yeah, thank you, Mikey. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Well, there you have it, folks. Veteran journalist Ken Ali. It's mind-boggling when you look at it, and these are words that are always thrown out there. The hypocrisy of the PNM, always to make something seem as though it's not in the best interest of the people. When you talk about patriotism and sovereignty and independence and what have you. Only when it fits their agenda, only when it suits their agenda that they can use these things so recklessly. But when the shoe is on the other foot, something totally different. Short break, come back. We're speaking to financial consultant Vet Siraram right here on The Observer. We'll be right back.
Your heart does so much for your body, your life, your loved ones. But modern stress, diet, and lifestyle can tip the balance, especially with every passing day. Heart XL delivers high-potency omega-7 palmitoleic acid from sustainable palm oil to elevate HDL and support a healthy metabolism.
Inflammation and low HDL put your heart at risk. Heart XL's omega-7 helps reduce C-reactive protein and support healthy HDL, keeping your heart strong.
Heart XL, nourish your heart, sustain your life.
When you say TNT's construction boss, then there's only one company, Lacroix Construction Services Limited, specializing in general construction, industrial maintenance, manpower resources, transportation and lifting, and equipment rental, excavators, bulldozers, dump trucks. Lighting systems, and everything.
Clinton
And bathroom faucets, along with face basins and toilet sets, blocks, lumber, steel, sand, gravel, and topsoil. Also check out Midland for steel windows and assorted designs of metal curtain rods. Everything for home and business projects. Payments via links, credit cards, online payments, or cash on delivery. WhatsApp 327-7761 or call 646-2144. Open every day from 8 a.m. From foundation to finish, it's all at Midland.
Thank you so much, Master Control. And of course, don't forget, Vitamin XL D3 provides the most natural and absorbable form of vitamin D, which promotes whole body health, which is crucial for cellular health, especially regarding the cells of the immune system. Every cell in your body needs vitamin D3 to function properly, so please pick up your bottle of Vitamin XL D3 today. Hey, and joining us is a gentleman who is also no stranger to The Observer. Always good to have him on, give us that financial insight. We're talking about the one and only financial consultant, Mr. Ved Siraram. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mikey. Good afternoon to all your viewers and listeners.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, my good friend. The executive chairman of NH International Limited, Emil Elias, is appealing to Prime Minister Kamala Prasad-Visesa to raise the US dollar exchange rate from $6.80 to $9. Of course, the current exchange rate is $6.79 for $1 US, according to the central bank. What say you, Mr. Siraram? Is there some benefits to it?
But you know, whenever you managing a country, the exchange rate is one of the few levers government has in terms of redirecting the economy. And if you look at the world today, it is not a tariff war, it's a currency exchange war. A currency exchange war. What has happened over the years, and let's look at it at a global level. What has happened with regards to the US currency, since the early 1970s, when Kissinger and they struck a deal with the Saudi Arabia to price oil in US dollars, and even before that, just after the Second World War, when it was agreed that the US currency will be the world reserve currency. However, backed by gold. In other words, the United States could not print more US dollars than the stock of gold that they had. So it was well controlled. What happened in the early 70s is that Kissinger and the president at that stage, they decided to move away from the gold standard. And therefore, that facilitated the printing of US dollars uninhibited. In other words, the United States could print dollars almost at will. So in the 1970s, when they broke away from the gold standards and they got the Saudi Arabia to accept trading oil trading in US dollars, the whole world followed because oil was the major commodity traded on the international market, and other commodities followed, and international trade really depended now on the access to US dollars. So US dollars was being accessed for trading, which was over and above the question of what United States can supply in terms of goods and services. It was wanted for trading, which was not for economic transactions between the rest of the world and the US. The other point was the United States dollars became the currency for a global currency, and people wanted it for savings and etc. So the demand for US dollars became higher than what the economic activities of United States could support. So in other words, it was highly currency is overvalued. You know, we are looking at places like Barbados and so on who has a fixed currency exchange rate, but their economy is different to ours. And they have a reason, they can determine why that is so. But when we have to adjust the currency rate, we have to ask, and the economists can actually tell you what should be our real value. And I think the IMF have been saying probably for years it is overvalued and should come down. What price for it to come down? I think the economists can work that out and we can adjust it. But the government, the Prime Minister already stated they are not going to touch the exchange value.
All right.
If you're not going to touch the exchange value, I am making the position, I'm taking the position, you cannot diversify the economy with an overvalued currency. So if we are holding the exchange rate as the Prime Minister promised, then there are other things to be done. So what are those other things?
Yeah.
Those other things are two things, which is the main one is undervalue. Sorry, you put in your negative listing to protect the local industry, you put in your negative listing. And secondly, you have to adjust your taxation, that's your duties and so on, to protect the local market. Only then you can. I've been talking about probably for the last 6 years.
Yeah, and that's true. You have always mentioned that the information that is needed has never been forthcoming. What we're getting here are not accurate reports. So image is there.
Okay, let me explain. I could explain for the
Go right
last
ahead.
2 years that I've been monitoring. Now the 2024-25 budget said, this is what they said, that is in birth, he said that the deficit was $5 billion. I think that registered with everyone. $5 billion, right?
Right.
But there's a caveat there, Mikey, a simple caveat. They said that excludes loan repayment and sinking fund contribution. Let's look at sinking fund contribution. That number is somewhere in the details. The last I checked was about almost $1 billion. But I do. So that is 5 plus 1. $1 billion that they have to find to repay principal per year. That's not interest. Interest is included in the expenditure.
Right.
So we went from 5 plus 1, 6 plus 7 is $13 billion. So the question arises, okay, if you're understating expenditure all these years for the last 10, 15, 20 years, and this is a problem throughout the Commonwealth, because I asked the people in another island, I think it was Antigua or so, they said that's how they calculated. But we have been miscalculating this for years, and that is why I could put some money on the table now that if the government looks at all of this, they have to come back to the Parliament for a supplemental increase in expenditure within 6 months. Within 6 months. Remember what I said, huh?
Yeah.
Mikey, remember what I said. That is why every year for the last 10 years they have been coming back to Parliament that, hey, look, we need more money. But needing more money is one, but they are unable to meet the allocations according to the budget to the several ministries. And you heard the talk that we have already expended all the money, and we don't have enough to advance further money under the budget to the various ministries that they run out of money. And that's why they came back for a supplemental increase. So, so there are serious problems with the mathematics, and I've been advocating over the years, correct it, otherwise we continually bust our budget from day one. It was.
From day one. So
it's not practical.
Okay, it's not practical. All right. So
it's not practical.
So it's a matter of predicting more and receiving less.
Well, you see, this is where the new government come in, and they should go into great detail as to what happened in the last budget. Now, any corporate institution, if a finance manager comes to present the budget, the first thing he has to establish is budget credibility.
Right.
Understand what I'm saying? And I've written about this, I've spoken about this. How credible the budget was or will be will depend upon how credible it was in the previous years. So hopefully the minister, whilst he has inherited the last budget, he will say, look, we have budgeted to raise $43 billion, we have budgeted to spend $53 billion. This is how we managed to make up the deficit of $10 billion. And they'll have to say, whilst we budgeted to raise 43, we actually raised 40. Whilst we expected to spend 53 or so, we actually spent 55. So you have to comment. This is a requirement, a basic requirement. You must tell the population and the parliament, how did you perform with regards to the last budget? Now let us say the minister comes and said, look, we budgeted to raise 53, we raised 53. We spent 53. In this case, we spent 53. We budgeted to raise 43, we raised 43. By saying that we met our budget, we would have explained to the parliamentarians, that is all parliamentarians, government and opposition, and to the citizens of this country, that we know what we are doing.
Yeah.
So if we know what we are doing based on past performance, then the country will have confidence now in the budget that you are now presenting. So the first thing they must establish is the budget credibility. Can we believe you guys with regards to the budget? Now this is a new government.
Right.
If the last government failed and you continue the same malpractice, I call it malpractice, the same malpractice, then you would not have a chance to correct it the next time around. This is the only chance the new government has of correcting the numbers. The only chance. And I'll give you another example. I worked in a bank for years. If you appoint a new manager to a branch, he goes through all the accounts.
This budget presentation, and it has to be something that is realistic, something practical. Otherwise, you wouldn't get a second chance to make anything of a good impression.
That is correct. That is correct. Because we have had over 10 years of deception. Over 10 years of deception with regards to the budget. Now, when money is flowing, that's not a major problem. At the end of the day, you're able to go to the market, raise money, and so on. But let's scan this over the last 15 years. Let's scan it very simply. When the UNC took over power in 2010, our bank debt, right, government bank debt, was $45 billion. And this is all recorded. When they left, it was $35 billion. So they added a $30 billion. But part of that was to settle a lot of the unions' negotiation,
right,
the central PIMCO and all that. So, there's some justification for it.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that, right? But like anything else, government could always be more efficient. But let's accept that now. So you move from 45 billion to 75 billion. That's $30 billion. When the PNM took over, they moved that same number, 75 billion, to 140 billion. 140 billion. So what has happened to Trinidad economy as judged by the GDP over those 15 years? It has actually declined, you know.
Yeah.
It has declined by more than 20%. So Mikey, you think for a moment,
Wow.
you just set up your bank debt by what's that, three times, like 300%, set up your bank debt, so your debt service goes up, your interest rate goes up and everything.
Right.
And your income dropped by 20%. How could you survive? How
Yeah,
could you survive?
that's not possible.
Right. So when you go to another bank though, and say, guys, they'll say, okay, what has been your income, what has been your debt, we work out your debt service ratios and things, and say, wait a minute, Mikey, you can't even meet interest payments, why are you coming to me to borrow money? Why are you coming to me to borrow money? And that is the crux of the problem. We have been judging, and this is a global problem which I challenge IMF, I challenge World Bank, I challenge all the governments in the world, all the ministers of finance in the world, that debt to GDP is a bogus number that tells you nothing. It was designed to tell you your capacity to borrow money and service debt, but it doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. You know, we are living in a pre-Columbus time when we still believe the world is flat. And I've been making this point for years, and if the citizens don't want to understand that, we have to accept the consequences. So the government is reaching a stage, if you move from 45 billion to 140 billion, that's about $95 billion that you increase the debt by, that bank debt. Eh?
Yeah.
I'm asking,
Wow.
wouldn't you keep meeting resistance when you go to the financial institutions to borrow money? Yes, you will.
Whoa.
So they would be exhausting now their capacity to borrow, and it come a point when borrowing stops and you hit a wall. So where have borrowing stopped in the world? Many countries. Pakistan is one, they're begging here, there and everywhere. Argentina is one. Many times the global financial institutions refuse to lend them. Venezuela, I don't think any bank lend them.
No.
Antigua at one point, no banks want to lend them. So, you know, are we going to wait till we hit the wall and then say, how do we pick up the pieces and move forward? Or do we when we still have a little slit, a little opening, and I think we still do we now take the bull by the horn and say, guys, we are not going to import $300 million in cars. We don't need it. We do not need it. We're going to drop that to 25. Now, certain industries are going to collapse or has to adjust significantly. We have had this. Mikey, I think you're old enough to remember the recession of the 1980s.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So we are almost there. We are almost there, and this is where the government ask any of the people in the Ministry of Finance or Economics, is it a profit and loss statement? No, because there's no depreciation, there's no amortization, etc., right? Is it a source and use of funds for the government? I would say no, because they do not include increases and decreases in your balance sheet items such as receivables and payables. They don't include it. So what is it? It is a pure cash flow budget. Pure cash flow budget. So the cash flows, you must include the payments on principal on all your loans. It's a cash flow budget. But you know, this is, it's elementary. For those who know, the problem is
Give them a call at 640-5828 or visit them at number 41 Kane Farm Road, Tacarigua, or email ryanairac@gmail.com. For prompt and efficient service, look no further than Ryan Air.
Your heart does so much for your body, your life, your loved ones. But modern stress, diet, and lifestyle can tip the balance, especially with every passing day. Heart XL delivers high-potency omega-7 palmitoleic acid from sustainable pollock oil to elevate HDL and support a healthy metabolism.
Inflammation and low HDL put your heart at risk. Heart XL's omega-7 helps reduce C-reactive protein and support healthy HDL, keeping your heart strong.
Heart XL, nourish your heart, sustain your life.
When you say TNT's construction boss, then there's only one company, Lacroix Construction Services Limited, specializing in general construction, industrial maintenance,
Always the action has started. We are doing more than just observing, and we have a lot in store for you. Until then, have a good one and be safe.
The Observer.
Mickie Kerr, Mickie Kerr, Mickie Kerr, Mickie Kerr.
The Observer.
Behold.
Oh yes, got it.
Alright, cool.
Actions.
3, 2, 1. Yeah. Can't tell you how much I need you. Come on, breathe. Them sister me from the sideline just now look like anything will happen. I'm gonna move forward. Tell them don't worry about me. Every one of my steps are ordered. I may say, if you're not going with me, I'm not moving from here. It's your presence I need, so I won't fail again. If you're not going with me, I'm not moving from here. It's your presence I need. Me don't lose track of the amount of times me fall up. I'm not as good as people think I am. be honest, my strength